Okay, yeah, welcome here back to that third session. My name is Michael Freundt. I'm working for the German Dance Association, and that's why I guess Livia to behind me. Maybe later on I could also say something to the idea of a conference on different educational systems. Here on the stage, I can welcome Seifan and Hannah Ma. And so we have the task to speak about the performative political body. It's like a tongue breaker. We before had a little bit like the idea that the performative political body, not border but body, could be like thinking about this society as political body with all these power structures, with all these distinctions and inclusions, exclusions. So we would like to touch this issue from the different perspectives and experiences. Hannah Ma is with Chinese-German roots, and I guess she can share her artistic work and her research in terms of dealing with professional dance. What is professional dance? Is it ballet? Or what other ways of dance are not mentioned as professional and therefore not that they could not come really in the arts institutions? That might be an approach, as well as your work with artists in exile. And for May, I think it's also the approach and the experience and research in arts and activism. And she has a background as a Syrian dancer, curator, as well as performer, choreographer, and now as an activist in arts. With both, we have a small relationships in the sense that Hannah was quite a long time working on a Tanz project, which here that is often is a and we somehow worked on that, but not succeeded yet, so to say. And it might be also a question of accessibility of funding structures, in a way. And with May, we had some workshops with other Syrian performing artists, I would say, in the terms of the project touring artists, where we also discussed the way of how to access German arts institutions, how to access German funding structures, and that also, I would say, relates to the issue. And my idea is to maybe give you first the floor, just that you can share your points and your work experiences regarding to our issue or around it. And then afterwards, Hannah, and then we come a little bit into this discussion, hopefully.
Okay, I'll try to be as short as I can. So now I am actually in a position in my life where I am Syrian, but not Syrian enough, German, but not German enough, an activist, but not an activist enough, dancer, but not dancer enough, and also I am a mother of 3 children, so I'm facing always many kinds of, I don't know if we can call it racism, but it feels like that from so many perspectives and so many views. And like the most shocking one was also, for example, the racism towards me as an artist who have 3 children. And then how to get excluded from so many things because they take it for granted that she have 3 kids, so she anyway do not have time to do anything. So I came back to the activism now in the last 2 years, actually. The last year really concentrated, and then I started to work with Syrian artists and activists who are in like similar places like the place I am, like people which you cannot really put in a very clear category and drawer, And then we are exchanging ideas and thought, doing a lot of workshops just to discover stuff, to raise questions actually. We still do not have answers, but it's more about questions. It was very important for me to have a babysitter, to have a place for the kids, so the moms who can come, they do have a space for the kids and someone who's taking care of it. And it was totally okay that the kids enter our place where we were having the workshops. And it was for me also a statement towards this discrimination I felt all the time as a mother, a woman, and all of that. I can talk more about maybe Syrian artists and activists who are facing, or in a phrase of, I'm calling it a political depression, where they lost belief in so many things, in so many organizations, in so many forms, in so many institutions. The feeling of being left alone in this war, in this whole thing happening, and then to be welcomed as a refugees, but at the beginning it was always like an exotic thing, but then like the mode or the fashion just disappeared, and now the refugees are more the place where people can let their anger on them and shift the political problems from like addressing it towards the government and towards the real responsible people for that, and then to have this victim, now the new victim. Honestly, I don't feel at all that the politic is doing enough effort in that field, but I feel it is feeling more comfortable and to shift that problem and to let people deal with the refugees as their problem. And actually the right wing is having more and more space, and I really don't see any efforts, like real effort, to face that or to deal with that. And now with the corona situation, this problem became bigger with this this communication, and especially with considering the other as a threat to yourself. I mean, this position many refugees or newcomers to the country faces, but now this is towards actually everyone. Everyone is afraid of everyone, and I'm having a real problem with not seeing the faces of people. I cannot communicate with people without seeing their faces. I get like really crazy after 3 minutes of wearing the mask. I mean, I have allergies and stuff, but I feel like so claustrophobic with this mask. And my contribution to that is wearing the burqa in order to irritate also this idea of, again, like drawers, people who wear burqa have this thing, or actually everyone is wearing burqa now, so maybe we should rethink the situation, or see how to deal with that, or maybe become more tolerant with people who wear it, or just question a bit more what are the backgrounds. I feel a big difference also between dealing with a person as a human, or with a person, as a number, as an ID, as a bureaucratical thing. And I'm facing also a lot of racism with this new modern slavery of institutions and money, and where is your position in the working society, and how much money you can afford, and also as an artist, where is your position within that society who deals a lot with money, or which put people also into stages according to that. On my work personally, Since many years, I took a distance from the technique of dance and the show of dance and showing skills on stage. I don't like this anymore. I cannot see it anymore personally. I respect every form, but for myself, I really cannot see another performance where they do and perform the same, and I'm seeing performances since 30 years in my life and performing it. So I had enough of that, and I would really like to go to another stage. So I'm working a lot on the subconscious level, what I'm doing since 10 years, because I couldn't find access to the artwork after what happened in Syria, because it's not a thing, a small thing, or just numbers in the news, or it is a big thing. And then you come here and you feel that the whole thing is just like a number or like something in the news, and then how to deal with it. And then it was so exotic to have this Syrian artist or artists from the Arabic world, and then also all the expectations of the curators that you have to educate the people, or you have to present your country, or you have to, I don't know, talk about identities. And so curators also many times comes and talk, and then they want to see something. And if they don't see it, they feel disappointed, or this is not what they actually wanted. It is, so sometimes, or many times, I got the feedback on my work that it is not serious enough, because I use a lot of elements of sarcasm, or I don't tell stories. I'm working with dreams and images and very distracted things, and I'm very far away from, as I told you, like showing techniques and so on. So I got this really many times that I'm not taking the problem of my country serious enough. No, really, I can show you the articles. There are a lot of them. So yeah, this is like I was thinking maybe in one of the performances I would read all of these comments. And at a certain point also, especially at the beginning of the whole Arabic Spring things, people started to do competitions about who's suffering more and who lost more people and whose house got more destroyed than the others. And I found it so difficult to bring these things on stage. It felt as if, I don't know, like come have pity on me, and or I want to explain stuff for you and so on. Yeah, so I kind of, I don't know, I'm now more interested in the process as itself. I work with a lot of artists, not necessary at all that they should be dancers, but I'm working with dreaming artists, like artists who have a very close connection to dreams. And then we see what happens. I give them the Syrian dreams, which I have, and then we talk, and then stuff happens, and then we go on, and then other stuff happens. And then once we perform it, I always step back. I don't know why. Like I feel I don't want to sell that. I don't want to, I don't know, it felt so strange. And now I'm finding another ways back, but more through this activism and through this work with the bodies of real activist people. I mean, they should not necessarily, none of them are dancers, but we're discovering a lot more about the body and what the body can do and what can it describe, and yeah, where to go with it and how to use the body to heal trauma. And all of them, they are really deeply traumatized. So yeah, this is where I'm playing now. I don't know.
Yes, mate. Thanks for sharing. I mean, I would later on like to get back on the point of the distinction between the independent and the art institutions, which is for me like a general issue beside any cultural backgrounds. So it's even here in the cultural system, and then the distinction between, not distinction, but the relation between activism and art. you pointed to, and then also what you said before, like a concrete proposal to change the educational system you gave. Okay, but first, Hannah, please, the floor is yours.
I have a lot of stuff here because I wanted to see what happens, and I have a little exercise, but now I think I just want to continue what May said. Maybe we can do the exercise afterwards. I think we are very much in the same position now, and I find it very good to sit here with May, because also I had this, I was like, my life in the last 5 years was like a constant crisis. So the COVID pandemic was just on top of that crisis, and that was also why I was a bit like, I was completely stepping out from what happened. Actually, I have to go back to when the first Fachtag should have happened, because I was in Berlin and I live right on the border of Germany, close to Luxembourg. So I was in Berlin and everything was shutting down, going on lockdown. And I was supposed to fly to South Africa to give a masterclass at the university in Joburg. And we flew. So me, my 2 kids, and my babysitter flew out 2 days before there were no more flights, because I was like waiting for this trip for the last month, because I have 2 kids, and last year my husband died because of cancer, and my smaller child was 10 months. So I'm used to crisis, but also this taught me a lot about everything we're talking about now, about the body, about colonial thinking, which I identify as I know better than you, and as being suddenly a group that is out. So what happened also during the lockdown was that suddenly I was single parenting, a freelance artist, and I had no more babysitter and nothing, so I was off everything. But by the end I learned a lot about myself, and this is, I think, what is my proposal to identify colonial thoughts and overcome racism, because we have to look at ourselves and our own history, and that's what Nina said. I was relating a lot to what she said, because I think the body has a somatic memory, and the body is a witness, and it's the evidence of who we are and how we came to where we are now. And we are shaped through political systems, through our education. And me, for example, I grew up in Berchtesgaden, so that's the place where Hitler lived. So I'm Holocaust Berchtesgaden resident, and I grew up there. I was in a Bavarian bubble, and my father came from Hong Kong. I never knew that I was special. I just felt alienated constantly because I was put in a journal, and I don't know, I was never told that there is another heritage I'm carrying with me and that my roots are somewhere else, and I found that super colonial. It's not that I want to blame anyone, like my mom, who then single parented me, and my grandmother, but it's just a not education of empowering a child to understand who you are and who you can be, and that it's empowerment, and it's a cultural heritage you're carrying, and you are not a misfit or this be-othering. I had many times in my life the situation that I was telling someone I'm half Chinese, and then the people said, oh, it doesn't matter. And these were actually the moments when I understood about racism, because before that I didn't know, because I was in this Bavarian bubble, and then my path was to become a ballet dancer. So this was another bubble that was totally colonial and sexist, but it was my escape. And then now, many, many years after, I came to that point where I suddenly understood that I went through super colonial structures all my life. So first it's Bavaria, then it's ballet dance. But all of that actually can also be a resource. So now it's a big resource because I learn how other people think. So, and I think it's about that crisscross way of being with each other, that I never know who the person, the body that I connect with in a moment was or is. So I have to get out of my my mind, that is kind of a software that I built through my life and that is shaping and putting everybody that I meet into a system, because that's how we try to understand our existence. I think it's good or bad or black or white or I don't know, but we have to look at ourselves constantly, because this is we trick ourselves with that. And yeah, I have a quote from this publication, The Aging Body in Dance, and it's from Chess Curtis. He said, "Our embodiment, our inner-worldness, is the very stuff from which we make meaning on a daily basis. The importance of our bodies as experience and how bodies give us, deny us access to the world cannot be overstated. Whether I move through space with the assistance of wheels or by feet alone, how we imagine our own or other bodies to be, and how we experience the potential of what they could be, shape nearly all of our relations." And that is where we have to get back to the somatics and to our cell memory, because the body knows better. The body is the immediate reaction on our surrounding. And if we trust the body, then we can connect on a deeper level. And the mind is not able to do that. That's why I believe in performance as a shared experience. I think also what you said, that we have to overcome the spectatorship and the performership in that way, that we are always interconnected. So we cannot, we have to understand performing and staging something and being in a performative situation only in that way, that we can create that together, that the audience and the performers are creating together in an instant moment. And I have worked coincidentally with also dancers from Syria who came to Germany as refugees, and we started just working to be together in the studio, and I don't know, I offered them to share whatever they wanted to share, because also I felt a little bit not expert enough to do so I was coincidentally in that situation to be able to offer performing space to these dancers. And as it always is a process, I now understood how colonial I was in that time. But that's it, because now with that situation that I've lost my husband, and I was very, let's say, reflected on that, and I was doing coaching and whatever I did in that years to prepare myself. And it was fine. I kind of spiritually cleared and meditated a lot my relationship to life and death. But then what happened was my body stroked back somehow in that way, because I was clear with my mind. I had my statement. I know that life and death are like this. But there was a moment where just my body was in such a pain, and it was this missing this person. And it was not my mind that missed that person, it was my body, and it was physically so strong that I understood this cell memory. We have to give the body, and I was mourning, and I was doing my anger therapy, whatever thing, but still the body was, I felt that the body as a base of that emotion is so strong, and that I couldn't really find the words for this Trauerarbeit, the mourning and the grief, and I was always totally irritated by it, also by being labeled. But then suddenly, because I did a piece right after the passing of my husband in South Africa, so I made actually a piece about this dying process, which is super light. It's not traumatic. If you let go to that, it's not traumatic at all. And because I gave birth to my second son very short before, it's the same process. That was the thing I was analyzing, that how I see it makes a difference, but the feeling was the same. It was a transition. And so I understood suddenly when I had this piece on stage, that with this piece I created the lost land. It was a bit like the land or the home I had with my husband, so, and it was there on stage. And then it helped me very much to understand how the refugees probably feel, that you can never go back. And then I was like, oh, I didn't understand at all how they are feeling. So yeah, I think it's about these personal processes that help us as artists to understand the other position, if there is another position, because actually we all have one position together. But still, I think it's to look at ourselves and our thinking constantly. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, you also, here's a quote within the leaflet of your, what you say, it's about individual evolution. And it's quite an individual process, as you describe it, as you both describe it in your work. And in your experiences with the system, how art is produced in Germany, or I mean in the Western culture mostly. What would be your advice, or coming from your experiences? How should art institutions, how should the system change to make the resources, the big resources which are here in the country to fund art, to support culture, make them more accessible, to lower the barriers for artists with your background, but even I would say of many different backgrounds, diverse backgrounds, rather born or not born here in Germany. What could be the approach? Because I mean, there are some programs for more diversity in the institutions. For reason, I mean, my association, we have had quite in mind, or we really speak a lot about diversity. But when you look at our board, when you look at me, when you look at our members' assembly, you only see white people there, and they are all in these other institutions or associations. And it's not enough to speak about or think about it. There must be another approach. And it's, of course, it's our turn, but somehow we also, on the run, we fail. So I would be really interested in that kind of exchange, what should be done by these institutions or even associations, because in a way we also have power to work on funding structures, to work on how we can more dance visible, for instance. So how we can approach that?
Yeah, as I said in the last year, I'm more also working more in the political session. So today in the morning I had actually a very long session with the Bundesausschuss für Erwachsenenpolitischen Bildung. So, and we were talking exactly actually about racism. So like I have a very full day with the topic. And also we answered, for example, a questionnaire made by the EU asking exactly the same question, like what can we do to include more and to lower the barriers and so on. So from my opinion, the first thing is to include these people in the institutions. So it's not just about them applying, and then also having people who are not actually coming from this background thinking what should be good for these people and what should we do, but no, have these people as part of these organizations and work with them, or at least are advisors. So whenever a call or a program or something should be announced, so please have some advisors who are coming from another background if you want to include people coming from another background. And I think it's really important to go into that step and not to, because these people, they do feel excluded from the institutions, from the scene, also like in the festivals. Actually, most of the festivals, the biggest festivals, they mostly have the same groups actually touring around the world, and it's all more European or American groups, and they always have like a small slot for other makeup, I don't know, like a bit of salt on the whole cooking thing. But it always stays in this exotic place. So first of all, they must be really part of that. And then there are a lot of work to do. I mean, starting by writing the application, translating it into another language, or accepting applications in English as artists in Germany. I mean, English is the language of art. Now, like the whole Corona help programs, many of them, they ask you if you have, like you should have at least one or more governmental support within the 3 to 5 years before. So what should new coming artists do, or artists who didn't get the support from any kind of like governmental institution or so on, and how can they count their earlier works in their countries, or I don't know, for myself, like I had 2 years of doing where I didn't do a big performance because I had a child, and then I was doing other stuff, and then I was rearranging myself. So there was also like no space to tell yeah, like if you had a child or something. So there are a lot of things actually to do, yeah. Is that an answer? I can go on, like.
I'm going to also give Hannah the opportunity to.
I had a very special situation that I'm like out of the scene at all, and I live on the border in Germany. I'm also a Luxembourgish artist, but then through the Dachverband, it happened that I was on that export Tanzförderung, where I made excellent connections, for example, to the festival in South Africa, or where my work really works very well. But still, and what I discovered was that I'm sitting there alone with my kids. That's exaggerating, but I developed this Tanz Park project, and it's one-to-one the project that's now out by Fondaco, Global Village Venture, because I designed a project where I wanted to connect like mega cities and like rural areas to find new spaces where you can work, also in kind of pandemics, and where you have to digitalize to synchronize the working processes. But I guess it's really about that scene, and I don't know if it's possible to open the scene, because they're always everywhere there are scenes. So I think maybe there should be probably meetings there where people from somewhere get wildcards. Or something like that, that you have a panel and that there are people who can sign up and you get a wild card, and you don't know who will be there, but maybe that's a good thing because only people will sign up who are interested. So I don't know, because also that is something I kind of also accept, that there are like scenes, because that's what we humans do. We design scenes and we want to connect with other people who are a bit similar, but this is naturally, and then on the other hand we have to constantly reflect on that, because this closes also the bubbles.
Yeah, I mean it touched the issue that of course you always have to take more efforts to reach other people. Really, participation not only means that people can come into your institution and be proud to participate somehow, but you as an institution somehow has to go out and participate in the culture of others in a way. And but of course, to be honest, we did not manage yet. So we make small attempts in our institution, in the certain institution, like the German Dance Association. But I mean, the question is, we have so many institutions. It's really so institutionalized in Germany. Wouldn't be really, when you think on the municipal theaters, the museums and so on, I mean, they have really the big part of the cake, and then there's a smaller one which is in project funding for the independent scene or so. What would you see? Wouldn't it be better to leave them somehow out, funding the own institutions, the own associations, by, for instance, refugee artists or artists in exile, just to establish their own structure? Or is it more a way just to enter the existing structures, or just leave the art institutions really out and go in activism and not really change the society and then change the arts institutions thereby? What would be your approach?
The art institutions should be part of that, because I mean there is this institution and it took so many years and so many bureaucracy work to do that. I mean, I just did an IFAO and I know how much paperwork is that. So I think since you have institutions, established one who can do something and who did a lot of thinking and developed themselves during so many years, no, I would of course keep them and use that structure, but just develop on it and just go further steps with that and break a bit out of this bureaucratical system. I mean, Germany has such a strong bureaucratical system where many times you get so overwhelmed with that papers and that stuff, and so you don't have place actually to breathe or to do your stuff. So yeah, no, with the institutions, but and of course on the street, do stuff on the street and also individually, and see everyone what you can as an individual do, or not just hide also behind institutions.
It's difficult because that labeling, like the refugee, I started like that, and I did coincidentally that piece that was also evaluated by the UNESCO, and then we were touring to Ruhrfestspiele, and I don't know, and it was touring a lot, and I had 2 Syrian dancers inside, and then of course then the team was changing. And then I found myself in that very strange position if I have to audition a Syrian refugee dancer, because actually this was not at all what the piece was talking about. We were questioning the need of war and human evolution, and something came out. But then really I stepped out of the market, because if I would have promoted it as a piece with a Syrian refugee, then probably we would have even toured more and we would for sure have had more money. But I didn't, I didn't want to do that, because I find it ridiculous somehow in a way. But on the other hand, that's also how it works. So I don't know.
I mean, does that mean that there is a certain moment where the other participants in your project, some of them, or they had to also take responsibility? Is it also a question then that people who would like to have a bigger part of what is there and resources also has to take responsibility and stepping in these institutions, building their own associations, not only see how they can work good in the structures and frameworks, but to start changing the frameworks, not only for themselves, but just for all in the scene. Is that thinking you could follow? The question of to what extent we take our own responsibility, or the responsibility for our art form, for instance. Just one in brackets, one example. Lastly, we had a discussion about how to change the theater system, where dance only is to change the theater system, or the institutional theater system, where when you are a dance company within a theater, namely you are depending on the managing director, and you could only change if someone who is first step, the ballet director or the dance theater director, then steps into the position of the leader of the house or of the intendant. And that only a few people do so, but step by step it happens even more. So it's also the question of the principal discussion of taking responsibility for more than only the own part of the big institution, business, whatever. So, and for me it's also part of the question how to change the institutions, but also take responsibility, stepping in.
But I think here we have more responsibility by the institutions, because the people who are arriving in Germany, they have a lot of real big problems. They have problems with, I don't know, all the paperwork and the German language courses and the integration course, and also dealing with words as integration and not the co-living concept or like the exchange and so on. So they have a lot of things to do and to understand. And I think, for example, it is important for institutions to work with the job center, for example, to say, okay, and this is a thing which I tried by myself as a person. I just called at the job center. I said, I am a Syrian choreographer and dancer, and I'm doing a new piece, and do you have any dancers which I can use, work with at my piece and so on. So the woman on the telephone, she was so irritated by my question. I said, what is the problem? I mean, you're a job center, you have people, and you should have registrations and so on, and I'm offering a job to a certain group of people, and it was 2015, where I know like so many artists actually and so on also came from Lebanon, because many artists went to Lebanon, and then at a certain point also they all left Lebanon when they found out, okay, it's not a thing of 2-3 years in Syria. So she couldn't give me an answer at all, and I really tried to continue with her and then to get to someone else, and because I was really curious to see, okay, I would like to do a study about how many artists do you have here. Nothing, but I know also from the side of the artists that many of them also, they are at the job center and they are sending them to do stupid jobs, and they spend so many years with, I don't know, just like trying to find themselves. Like my husband, for example, he's an artist, is a researcher and a regisseur, and he speaks English. He does everything in English. And he wasn't also at the job center, he was always doing his thing. And then we went to the Ausländerbehörde, and then they didn't give him actually the years of accommodation who he could get, because he doesn't speak German. He said, yes, but I'm working in English, so why should I need this? You know, and he didn't get it, and because of that we got in a lot of troubles because of it. So I think it's also the responsibility of the institutions to go search for these people and to do the first step, because the people do not know where to go. It's so much information, it's so overwhelming. And of course, at the beginning, you're kind of afraid, you don't know the structure, you don't know which people you're facing and which drawer they would put you and so on. So yeah, I think the institutions could do much more in that place. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there should be specialists for that kind of questions, because also when I was starting to work with the people who came here as refugees, and then one dancer who was with me, he said, wouldn't it be great to have, I have so many friends all over Europe, let's do something together. And then I said, okay, let's try. And then we made a project, and I had, I think, like 8 Syrian dancers who came. And I think I was constantly with one foot in jail, actually, because of all the working visa and this kind of thing. But I said, anyway, I'll take the risk, because if I don't do it, I will. That's why we are artists, to take a risk. But normally I think that is something an institution probably would have not done, because the risk is too big of making a mistake and then you have a big scandal and whatever. But, and also then I tried with my limited resources to at least get 2 of the people on the market in a way that they don't have to do another job by the side, so that they have constant work. And I found like a hybrid construct with the theater in Trier, that I kind of rented my company to the theater, and they were doing like 3 shows in one season with the theater. But they were employed with me, and it was actually very good, but it was crazy in administration. So as more or less a 2 people like structure that I am, it was actually not able to manage, and because also we didn't have an expert who could help us with the working visa. And we had very good contact with the job center, so they were very supportive, because we also tried to, that they get enough work to stay, and that they don't. But still, I think that's there are much more difficult issues when you just in the working processes in paperwork than when you work with, I don't know, German people who have a German passport or European.
Of course, totally.
And then
you're also used to do this kind of work, or when you're used to this paper, and it doesn't mean nothing for you, but for a Syrian person who just arrived, it would take him like 4 days of working. And this is where I think it's important to have people in the institutions who could contact the people in their own language, you know, like to write to them in Arabic or Farsi or whatever, so they feel also more welcome, and not everyone also speaks perfect English, or they feel kind of, oh, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I learned that it's not only to include the people, but also to have some really resources within the staff, or even just financial means, to give that approach a certain support in that. Mm-hmm. And okay, yes, beside the artistic practices we learned about in the first session and the change in the education system, we had in the second session on the table, that I think there are many ways, step by step, to change the system, really in artistic collaborations and so. But it is also like a big issue to have like a general approach to the institutions, with new approaches in terms of the personnel, the staff, the program, but also about the budgets and so on.
What I think is that also I used to stigmatize myself, that I would anyway not write that application because no one knows me or something like that. And I see that a lot also with the people around me, that they think, oh, anyway. And I think that's something that the art has to come from the artists, to believe in oneself and to be really honest and authentic with the work, and then to trust the institutions, and maybe to go there and tell them, I'm here, and because of this and this and this, I need that funding. Because that's what I see a lot, especially with young artists too, that they step back and they think, anyway, I cannot access the market. But we have to try and to try and to try, and then one day it happens, and to overcome that stigma that we also give to ourselves, maybe.
I think it's a general issue in arts education, that you also have to give possibilities to also get these skills for, like for project management, for several ones, and working in the system, and then even also work together to change the system. What is a political issue then? So maybe we leave it for a moment here. We just a little bit in front of the time, say like 10 minutes. Hannah, you made there is also a question. Okay.
I wanted to give you an idea which came out spontaneously beside the idea of a conference. Maybe, you know, the dance institutions and the National Dance Founding, which are much stronger now in Germany than 10 years ago, which is good, you know. They all give money for similar things, you know, like performances, artistic process, or conference, or, you know, of many, or this all organization. And maybe to your question, how can we do to change? Maybe it takes longer time than a conference, or it takes longer time than to speak about in a political panel or through performances. So maybe there could be like a founding to rethink the system, which Dance Institution National could pay some people for 1 year. I mean, from very different backgrounds, to come together and think, what does it mean to rethink the dance system on an artistic, social, political, and educational level? Like to take a longer run, you know, and give funding to rethink together, and, you know, take action together. And by creating such a program, also including from the beginning, you know, people with very different perspective, and to take the time for it, you know? Mm-hmm. So maybe after a process like this, new form of institution can arise, or people find a way in institution which they wouldn't find a way before. I mean, the institution now, they also have to have the time to meet other people and to connect, you know? So maybe it should be like a longer process, maybe 1 year of really rethinking the whole system, and gathering people together from very different fields on this artistic, social, political, and educational level, dance. I mean,
Yeah, it only starts with a meeting. It only starts with an encounter, and I mean, the day after the conference is where the work starts. Then, yeah, for instance, the Tanz project, it took like more or less 7 years to establish such a program after the program before, the Tanz Plan program. So, and but really, it's an issue. It's a long-term thing. Hannah, you made a proposal to make an exercise. You would.
I have an exercise from the anti-bias work. It's very basic, but I find it kind of refreshing. So we could do that.
Yeah?
Yeah?
Shall we do that? And then afterwards we go into the
I have to
break
be
session.
super correct, no? Because I have to move. So normally that's not, I will read it out probably for the virtual people. So I will relabel you. So you are homosexual and live with your partner and your son. You are the son of a Chinese family who has a very well-working fast food shop. You are 27 years old and live on the street. You are an unemployed teacher in a country where you cannot speak the spoken language fluently. Hello. You are an illegal, what's it called? You migrated illegally from Mali to Germany. You are 22 years old and lesbian. You are a single parenting educator with a limited working contract. So, you are a 17-year-old Roma and haven't finished your primary school. You are a black German student.
I pass.
You pass.
Exercise.
Okay. You are a black German student. You are a prostitute with an HIV infection. You are a 24-year-old refugee from Afghanistan. You are an Arabic girl, a Muslim who has very strict religious parents, an unemployed single parenting mom. You are the daughter of the bank CEO and you study business at the local university. Oops. You are a young man using a wheelchair. I'm out of. You are a worker in a shoe factory, but now you are retired. And you are, you are the daughter of the American ambassador in the country you are now living in. So normally you would all be in one line, and then I'm reading out some questions, and whenever you say yes, you would go one step forward. So maybe you can walk around your chairs. Ich habe euch vergessen. Is it okay? So, you can get a credit from your bank whenever you want to. Normalerweise würdet ihr vorwärts laufen, aber jetzt geht ihr euren Stuhl, just like one step. Every question one step to see who is able to move and who not. So, one step if you get credit from your bank, whenever you want to. One step if you can get, you can go to the dentist whenever you want to. One step if you always feel safe on the street in the darkness. One step if you can plan ahead 5 years your life. One step, if you can kiss your partner without any problem on the street. One step, if you can choose the place where you live freely. One step, if you can make an Anmeldung, what's it? Registration of your next child in the local kindergarten. One step, if you can live freely and without problems your religion. One step, if you can spontaneously go on a trip with your friends to Switzerland. One step, if you can vote at the next communal election. One step, if you can afford to go once a week to the cinema or in the pub to have a drink. One step, if you can be relatively sure that on the train from Duisburg to Amsterdam, you will not be controlled by a Grenzbeamter. One step, if you can adopt a child. One step, if you can study at the university. One step, if you can make holiday in the place you were born. One place, if you can find easily an apartment. One step, if you're relatively sure that your family is safe. And one last step, if you feel accepted and included everywhere you are. So, thank you.
Thanks, Hannah.
Normally it takes a bit longer, and there would be questions before that you can incorporate a bit more who you were, but I think it was very visible that there's a lot of stillness. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot to everybody for that session. Now, analog and digital, we go into smaller groups. And Nora asked me to make an announcement before, because after these breaking out in the groups, we will have a soup. But before you go to the soup, please change your chair just in the opposite direction, because now it's front here, afterwards it's front there. And then, yeah, enjoy the discussions in the smaller groups, and then, of course, the soup or what it is for eating then afterwards. Thanks a lot. Thanks.